Alright guys, well, here's how I like to wear it when I go out to the woods. I like it right here. I usually carry a gun on the other side. You see the buckle here? Everything came out really nice. The strap hangs just right. Everything came out absolutely perfect, just the way I wanted it. On the back, I did wind up going to a line 20 stamp, or line 24 snaps. I like them mostly because they're a lot stronger than the line 24s are. So, that's what I did on the back. The front, you can see how we closed it. And it's just a loop, goes straight through. This pocket I didn't think would need any snaps. I still don't think it will, because this flap will cover it too. So there you go. I went 4 holes above this one that I'm using, and 6 below it. So it can be adjusted to be longer. Some people like to carry them different. I can still make it put more up if I want to. Stitched all the way around the strap. And that's really the end of the project. Kind of a drag, huh? Got my stool here. Just the cami rough. In the mirror so I can see what the heck's going on. Alright. So, tools that we used were pretty minimal. You need a knife of some sort. My bigger cuts I did with the bigger knife. Cutting around the curves and stuff I did with an X-Acto knife. The thread is just, it's an artificial sinew. Works pretty well for projects like this. However, what I use for holsters is a braided nylon. It's just sturdier. Well, maybe. This is pretty strong stuff. I had an awl that is very sharp, and I stabbed myself several times with it. Did not draw blood, thank God. Where I used the overstitch wheel, I changed that anyway, and I just used this tool. The prongs are 1/8 of an inch, and there's 1/8 of an inch spacing between the prongs. So it works out really well. Around corners and stuff, this 4-prong wide doesn't do real well. So you can angle it and mark for your next hole and go like so. Or this is just a nail that I flattened out enough to be about the same as points on here, and that works real well for just doing single holes and going around corners. So that's how we made the holes for these 3 tools: an awl, a single prong punch, and a 4-prong punch. Let's put them away before I forget, hurt myself again, or knock a bottle of dye on the floor, which I just did, a quart no less. A knife, always with a good sharp blade, and you want to make your pass through that leather in one shot. An X-Acto for going around corners, because the big knife just doesn't do corners real well. The little cup here is kind of full of stuff. The holes in the belt and the holes for the snaps were done with a very simple hole punch, 1/8 inch hole punch. Yep, 1/8 inch. Which didn't take much. The snaps, the line 20 snaps, are 4 pieces. You have the front with a button side, which most people will put into the female side, or the socket. And then you have a reasonably flat piece with a prong with the post on it. And that will generally go to the male side, just like so. When you have them together, I'm not going to do this, you have this tool, you have an anvil. Now the anvil is flat on one side and it's dished out on the other side. So the dished out side is used with the button side of the snap so that it fits down in there, and when you pound on the post it doesn't crush the button. And the other side of the anvil is flat, and you use that with the flat side. You put your leather in between, and you can see there's a little nub on the end here. There's a little nub right here which centers itself in the post, and as you pound down the post, the flat here will mushroom it out. So what the post, what the post will do is it'll kind of roll around in a circle. Just kind of rolls. And that's all there is to putting a snap in. I know it sounds easier than it is. If you buy, Tandy's got a kit with the line 20 snaps. This is just an extra bag of snaps. 20 of them, or 100 of them, or a million of them, I don't know. Bunch of them in there. I don't use a lot of snaps, but I gotta have them around for when I do need them. And these are a black chrome. I also have nickel plated and brass plated, so that's really all there is to snaps. You have the anvil, the setter, and your snaps. Now I did use a harness needle, and the harness needles will come in different sizes. I don't know what size these are, but for comparison, this one's a size 4. So you can kind of get an idea of the difference in them. I used the big needle with the big holes, the slots that I was using basically to do my stitching. Sorry, I keep moving out of camera there. The slots that I used for the stitching, the big needles went through really easily, front and back. So I have just the end of the strap that I had. I'm gonna show you just real quick how the 4-prong can make your hole here. The camera's probably going to shake. Now you can see the 4. To get the next set of 4, I'm going to put the last prong in the last hole. So I'm only making 3 holes, and I pound it all the way through, and then you just repeat that all the way up. And when you get used to it, you can go pretty well. Now I don't have enough to put all of them in there, so I'll use 2 holes, and I'll just put 2 holes in there. So you can, it's really easy to keep your stitch line straight. Reasonably so. I kind of hurried through that, but it's reasonably straight. Now going around the corners, you can kind of eyeball here your distance. Now you can use a ruler. I wonder if I can get this to zoom in a little bit. There we go. So you can kind of eyeball it here and use your single hole punch and just kind of guesstimate 1/8 of an inch. And I try to stay 1/8 of an inch. When I'm using these tools, I stay at least 1/8 of an inch back. So everything is really pretty simple. And again, you just pound it right through. And I'll just kind of eyeball them. But you can see how you can make your curve just like that using the single hole. So this, when I did 2 pieces, I took my ruler and I measured. I'm going to do this with pen. I did this with my awl and just scratched a line, but I'm going to do it with pen so you can see it better. So I made a mark at 1/4 of an inch because I want to stay 1/8 of an inch away from the edge with my stitch. But I want to overlap 1/4 of an inch. So I had a line. I scribed a line with my awl, and I don't think you can see it real well. Yeah. If you're sitting right here, you can see it really well. Oh, it shows it better on camera than it does in person. But you can see it. But I just scribed a line. So then I could get my piece right up there just like that, and I could stitch it. When I did that, I punched my holes through one side first, which I can flip it over now because I know I'm going to stay at 1/8 of an inch in. So I just punched my holes, and then if you glue in it, you can glue it now and glue this right on your line so it doesn't move. Or the way I did most of it, I did it 1 hole at a time, and I would line up on my line, take my awl, ouch, stabbed myself, and just punched through on the hole. Now essentially I just marked my holes there, and if I wanted to, now that I know where they're at, I can go at my 1/8 of an inch and I can just pound my holes in. And they're going to line up as long as I put the 2 pieces back together the same. Or you can just continue along punching your holes. So when I line them back up, you can see that the holes line right up. So when I go overlapping it again, they're going to be fine. So I'm going to move the camera a little and get down by my stitching pony and show you how I did the stitching. So I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, hopefully you're going to be able to see all this okay. When you thread up your needle with the artificial sinew, about all you can do is leave a tag end hanging. A lot of times when I'm using bonded nylon or the braided nylon, I'll poke through and come back around, but with the artificial sinew, it just pulls through, so you can't do that. So I'll start, and you gotta go, I always go from the front and then the back. So my first hole is right there. And my second hole is right there. And we're just gonna pull it snug a little bit, just so everything kind of holds together. And then again, you'll take your front needle, go through the front, go through the back, pull it through. Now I always pull this needle away, or this thread away from my work, and I'll come around it, and you want to pull it back, and then I'll come through the back and through the front. And with this light leather, you don't want to pull too tight. You just pull, give it a little teeny tug, and then again through the front, through both pieces, pull it back, and I want to come under that thread and come back through again. And then we'll just give it a little snug tight. Again, from the front, through the back, and we'll come back under. So I'm just gonna cook along here. It's only a few inches, so I'm just gonna go and let you watch a little. I know the camera is kind of shaking a little bit. I have to apologize for that, but it's just kind of a little bit precarious the way I've got it set up. There wasn't much I could do. And take your time. We're never in a rush. But once you get used to this kind of stitching, it actually goes pretty quick. Make sure you're getting through both pieces, because taking it back apart to get it that way is not always fun. And I keep coming under the first one when I come through the back. And some people will tell you, don't put your needles down, and it just makes life easier for me. With the lighter leather, I have to hold it together at the same time because I'm not gluing anything. So if I drop the needle, it'll freeze up a hand. So now I'm at the end, and you can see how the stitch looks. Looks very consistent, very even, and that's kind of what you want. It gives a more professional look to it. After that, you need to tie off somehow. So I'll go back stitch at least one hole so that both pieces are on the inside. Now, I'll usually go 2 or 3, so we'll go back through again and make sure you snug them up good. And I'll just go to there. We'll just go like that. Now, some people will actually tie a knot in it, which I've done. Get my needles out of the way. So sometimes you can just take and tie a regular single overhand knot in it, and then melt the ends and the knot won't come undone. Or the way I usually do it, come on, there you go. Is I will take and I'll cut, and I'll leave about 1/8 of an inch sticking up. And then when I melt the end, I just melt it a bit, and then I kind of flatten it out with my finger. So what we have is that. And if you use the blue part of your flame, you don't get so much soot on there. But it is what it is. So that's how I do the overlap. If I'm doing something like this, again, we'll have it in the pony. Probably not going to do the whole thing. I kind of have to manipulate the ends of this a little bit. If it's really, really flat, it won't fit through the head, through the eye of the needle. So when it's flat like that, it's too wide. But if I use the needles with the bigger eyes, which I usually do with this, we'll tighten this up a little bit. There we go. So you kind of don't necessarily have a front or a back when you're doing something like this. But you do have to kind of decide what's going to be your front and what's going to be your back, because obviously there's going to be a part that's either going to get stitched up against the bag or is going to be have a buckle or something on it, and you want it so that it's facing away, so that it's facing back and you don't see it. So we're going to call this side the front, since I had the other side on the front last time. I'll pull that thread through, pull it back, and I'll come over the top, and then I'll run the other needle through. And give it a little tug. And again, go through the front, pull it through, pull it back and over. And we'll go through there. Okay. Everybody got that? I'll do one more for you. Go through, back and over, and then come through the other side and pull it. So now I'm just going to go, I'll do a few more. So you can kind of see it as I would be doing it. And you'll see why in a minute, because even if you're not, you know, when I'm doing a wallet or something, I'm punching a diamond-shaped hole in it. So the method to how you're handling your thread shows really, really big time on something like that. It won't show as much here. So these last couple I'm going to kind of do a little loose, and hopefully they'll show up a little better. You know, I got my radio on in the background. Hopefully YouTube doesn't flag this. I'll shut it off. I probably talked enough that you didn't hear it anyway. So, yeah, you can't really tell on this. You can tell where I started doing it loose. But otherwise you can't really tell. But you'll see if you're using a diamond hole, one thread will lay on top and it kind of leaves your threads at an angle. You can't really tell with the artificial sinew in the slots, but and when you get to here, then it's finishing is the same way. You just go back a couple and then melt your end. Make sure that you do it on the back side. So that's about all. Let me move the camera. Hopefully, it's been helpful. I am not much of a teacher, but you know that's the whole reason that I got started on YouTube was to give back to the community a little bit. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot left. That's gonna be it. We didn't use a lot of tools on the bag except for making the buckle, and that's a whole video of its own because they are kind of a pain in the butt to make. So stay safe, God bless, and catch you in the next video. Bye for now.